The morning I returned the uniform, nobody was supposed to notice. That was the whole point. I did not storm into the rehearsal hall with righteous tears in my eyes. I did not slap anyone. I did not make a dramatic announcement about betrayal, rebirth, karma, or the fact that I had already died once under the weight of their lies. I walked across campus before sunrise with a folded navy blazer held flat against my chest, the white skirt sealed inside a garment bag, and the red silk scarf tucked into its original envelope like evidence. Fog hung low between the faculty buildings, turning every window silver, and for one ridiculous second, I thought the world had reset itself just to test whether I would still be stupid enough to sacrifice myself for people who had already buried me alive with smiles on their faces. The campus security guard nodded at me from his booth. The same guard, the same booth, the same sleepy blink. In my last life, I had passed him at the same hour, clutching the same uniform, running to deliver it to my team because their laundry accident had supposedly ruined the replacements. I had believed them. I had believed the frantic messages, the voice notes, the shaking sobs from our captain, Mira, telling me that if I did not bring my official set, we would all lose our place in the National Academic Performance Finals. I had believed Nathan when he told me I was the reliable one, the backbone, the girl who kept everyone together. I had believed Sarah when she cried that her scholarship depended on that championship. So I handed them my registered uniform, took the wrinkled spare they gave me, walked into check-in looking like an unauthorized substitute, and watched the judges scan my badge, compare my outfit code, and frown. By noon, our whole group had been barred for roster irregularities. By evening, Mira had released a statement saying I had swapped uniforms without permission because I was jealous of her lead role. By midnight, I had become the selfish girl who ruined 6 futures. By graduation, I had no internship, no friends, and no reputation left to defend. By 25, I was sitting on the edge of a hospital bed after another rejection email, reading a viral post about how Myra's new company had donated to student mental health, and laughing so hard at the irony that I did not hear the monitor beside me begin to scream. Then everything went white. Then everything went backward. Then I woke up 17 again, in my old dorm room, with Myra's first message glowing on my phone. Emergency. Bring your uniform. We need you. This time, I read it once, washed my face, pressed the blazer smooth, and carried it in the opposite direction. I returned it to the official wardrobe office before anyone else arrived. I signed the return form. I requested a time-stamped receipt. I asked the clerk to scan the QR code twice. And when she yawned and asked why I was returning it before finals, I smiled like the quiet, obedient girl everyone thought they still owned and said, "I'm withdrawing from team costume custody. I don't want any confusion later." The clerk, Mrs. Hahn, blinked over her rimless glasses, because students did not talk like that at 6:17 in the morning unless they were either terrified or guilty. I was neither, which made me sound stranger. She turned the blazer sleeve inside out, checked the embroidered registration tag, and tapped my student number into her terminal. The blue light of the scanner washed across her face, then across mine, and a tiny electronic chirp confirmed that uniform set 4AF, assigned to me, had been returned in full. Blazer, skirt, blouse, scarf, badge loop, cuff pins. In my last life, that chirp never happened. In my last life, Myra's group kept my registered set until the investigation began, then claimed I had begged to trade because I hated the fit of mine. There had been no early return record, no camera angle of me handing over sealed pieces, no clerk who could swear the uniform left my possession before the disaster. I had entered the storm with empty hands, and everyone else holding umbrellas made from my trust. Mrs. Hahn printed the receipt slowly, the machine grinding as if it resented being awake. "You understand," she said, "if your team still competes, you'll need to wear the replacement uniform assigned through the committee. You cannot use privately held pieces. They're strict this year." I almost laughed. Strict this year. They had been strict last year too, and next year, and in every version of the world where poor girls were expected to obey forms while rich girls learned which forms could be bent. "I understand," I said. She slid the receipt toward me. I folded it carefully, placed it into the clear pocket of my binder, and took a photo of it with my phone. Then I took a photo of the return screen with Mrs. Han's permission, because this time I was not trusting memory to save me. Outside the office, the campus was still waking up. The bakery cart by the library had just opened, pouring warm sesame steam into the cold air. A flock of pigeons fought over a paper cup near the fountain. My phone vibrated again. Mira, where are you? Sarah, please don't play around, Lena. We seriously need it. Nathan, Captain's crying. Just bring it. We'll explain later. I stared at his message longer than the others, not because I cared, but because in my last life, that single sentence had moved me faster than any order. Captain's crying. As if Myra's tears were national emergencies. As if my future was a towel they could wring out whenever her mascara ran. I typed, "I'm on campus," then deleted it. I typed, "What happened?" then deleted that too. In the end, I sent nothing. Silence, I had learned too late, was not weakness. Sometimes it was a locked door. By 7:30, the rehearsal hall had become a hive. I knew without going inside. I had lived through this morning once before, so every vibration in my phone felt like a scene replaying behind glass. Mira pacing in front of the mirrors, Sarah chewing her thumbnail, Nathan pretending to calm everyone while privately calculating which girl was easiest to blame, Jesua refreshing the team group chat, Armin checking the schedule, and Felix making jokes because he mistook cruelty for charisma. In our school, the National Academic Performance Finals were not just a competition. They were a public ranking disguised as art. Teams built 15-minute performances around research, policy argument, and live demonstration. Ours was called Uniformity is Not Unity, an ironic title that would have made me believe in divine comedy if I had not already met divine punishment. We were meant to perform a piece about unequal access in elite education, with synchronized movement, debate segments, projected data, and symbolic uniforms that shifted under stage lighting. The judges loved that kind of thing. Pain made elegant, poverty turned into choreography, students from prestigious schools performing empathy for scholarships. I was the research lead, script doctor, prop manager, backup narrator, and, most importantly to Mira, the quiet girl whose name could be erased from any success and tattooed onto any failure. Mira was the face. She had glossy black hair that fell perfectly even when she ran, eyes trained to tremble on command, and a family name printed on 3 donor plaques across campus. Nathan was the male lead, a scholarship student like me, but unlike me, he believed proximity to power could become power if he smiled hard enough. Sarah was Myra's loyal shadow until shadows learned to hold knives. In the first timeline, I thought they were my friends because they used intimate language when asking for favors. They called me Arlena, our lifesaver, the only one we trust. They brought me coffee when I stayed late editing. They posted my notes in a shared drive under Myra's folders. They borrowed my laptop, my ID card, my locker code, my uniform. Piece by piece, I had mistaken being useful for being loved. Then the finals exposed the arrangement. In the official report for my last life, the committee wrote that I had willfully disrupted uniform compliance protocols and failed to provide evidence of authorization. Willfully. That word had followed me everywhere. It sat in job interviews. It sat in scholarship appeals. It sat at the end of every conversation where someone said, "You seem talented, but there are concerns about your character." So when my phone buzzed again and Mira finally called, I let it ring until it stopped. She called again. I watched her name flash. A small part of me, the part that had died younger than my body, whispered that she would punish me for ignoring her. The rest of me whispered back, "Let her try." At 8:10, I went to breakfast instead of rehearsal. That sounds small if you have never built your life around other people's emergencies. It was not small. It was rebellion with strawberry jam. I sat by the cafeteria window where sunlight cut across the table in clean rectangles, opened my binder, and reviewed the committee rules while everyone in the group chat unraveled. Uniform compliance was Rule 7, but Rule 9 mattered more. Any official uniform piece assigned to a student remained traceable through the wardrobe office, and unauthorized transfer of registered pieces could result in disqualification of the entire team if identity verification was compromised. The rule had existed in my last life too. I simply had not known it until after they used it against me. This time, I had highlighted it in yellow. I had also highlighted the subsection about team pattern integrity, which required all finalists to wear committee-issued uniforms matching their registered silhouette, color code, and number of visible pieces. That rule was new to me in my first life because Mira had handled wardrobe. Handled, I now understood, meant controlled. The committee assigned every set to prevent exactly the kind of substitution Mira planned because finalists received sponsor grants, travel stipends, and automatic interviews based partly on identity-confirmed participation. One fake substitution could turn a student contest into fraud. My old team did not need my uniform because theirs were ruined. They needed mine because one of them was no longer eligible to compete. I had not discovered that until months after the scandal, when an anonymous account posted deleted screenshots from Myra's private chat. Sarah had failed the attendance requirement, but Mira wanted her on stage anyway because Sarah's mother controlled a media foundation. Their solution had been simple. Sarah would wear my registered uniform, pass check-in as me from a distance during the chaotic morning rush, then switch badges backstage. I would wear a spare and be told the committee had approved it. If anything went wrong, the scholarship girl, without family lawyers, would become the problem. In my last life, everything went wrong. The scanner caught the mismatch. The backstage supervisor flagged 2 versions of my identity, and Mira cried before anyone could ask why Sarah had my cuffs. This time, my uniform was already locked in official custody. There was no registered set for Sarah to wear. There was no clean way to make me the ghost in my own body. I spread butter on toast and read Myra's 17th message. Lena, I swear I will never forgive you if you make us lose finals. The threat landed with almost no force. In my last life, I wanted forgiveness from people who were robbing me. In this life, I wanted documentation. The first interruption came at 8:22 when Nathan appeared in the cafeteria doorway like a boy walking into a scene he thought he could still direct. He saw me instantly. He had always been good at finding me when he needed something, less good when I was crying in public after his friends finished with me. He crossed the room fast, school blazer open, tie crooked in the carefully messy way that made teachers call him Ernest. Lena, he said, breathless, lowering his voice as if we shared a secret instead of a crime scene. Why aren't you answering? Mira is losing her mind. I took another bite of toast before looking up. In my first life, Nathan's urgency had made my hand shake. In this one, it made me notice details: the sweat near his hairline, the phone clutched too tightly, the absence of his uniform cuff pins.
Good morning, I said.
He stared, thrown off by the normality. This isn't funny. I'm not laughing. Then come on. We need your uniform. The set Sarah had is damaged, and wardrobe won't issue another without captain approval, and Mira says you have the only backup that fits the silhouette. There it was. The lie, dressed in panic but still wearing cheap shoes. My uniform isn't with me. His expression flickered. Where is it? Returned. He blinked once. Returned where? Wardrobe office. For a second, all the cafeteria noise seemed to fold inward. Forks clicked. Someone laughed near the vending machines. A chair scraped behind us. Nathan leaned closer, and the old softness drained from his face so quickly I wondered how I had ever mistaken it for kindness. Why would you do that? Because it's my assigned uniform and I'm responsible for it. You know finals are today. That's why I returned it properly. His jaw tightened. He pulled out the chair across from me and sat without asking. Listen, I know you and Mira had tension about the narration order, but this is bigger than your feelings. I almost smiled. My feelings. In my last life, after the scandal, Nathan had told a reporter I had always been emotionally unpredictable. He said it with sad eyes and a trembling mouth, as if betraying me had broken him more than being betrayed had broken me. There's no tension, I said. I'm following the rules. The rules? He gave a short laugh. Since when do you care about wardrobe rules more than the team? Since I learned the team does not care whether I survive them. The words came out calm, almost gentle. Nathan's face changed again. Not guilty, not sorry, only alert. Predators recognize when prey starts naming teeth. What is that supposed to mean? He asked. I slid the printed rule sheet across the table, tapping Rule 9 with one finger. It means Sarah should speak to the committee about her own registration problem instead of borrowing my identity. Nathan went still. Not dramatically. Not in the way movies show guilt, with wide eyes and dropped cups. He simply stopped performing for half a breath, and the real calculation underneath became visible. That tiny pause told me more than a confession. Then he recovered, because Nathan always recovered when there was an audience. That's a serious accusation, he said, soft enough that nearby students could mistake him for concerned. It's a serious rule. Who told you Sarah has a registration problem? No one today. His eyes narrowed at the word today.
Good.
Let him wonder. Let all of them wonder how much I knew and how I knew it. Rebirth had given me many gifts, but the most useful was not revenge. It was timing. People lie best when they believe you are catching up. They panic when you arrive early. Nathan reached for the rule sheet, but I placed my hand on it. He smiled at the gesture. Wounded boy smile. The one teachers trusted. Lena, you're stressed. I get it. Finals are huge. But if you make a mistake now, you'll regret it for years. There it was, the second prophecy of the morning, spoken by a boy who did not know he was quoting my grave. I leaned back.
No, Nathan.
I already did that. His smile thinned. What? I already made the mistake. I learned from it. He looked at me then, really looked, as if trying to find the frightened version of me behind my face. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. It must be unsettling to reach for a leash and find a knife has cut it clean through. He stood abruptly. Mira wants to talk to you. She can email. Don't do this.
I'm making.
His eyes flashed. Do you think the committee will praise you for being technical? They'll ask why your team is in chaos. They'll ask why you returned your uniform without informing the captain. They'll ask why you sabotaged finals morning. I picked up my receipt, held it between two fingers, and said, then I'll show them the timestamp. He stared at the paper like it had teeth. You planned this. No, I said, folding it away. You did. I just stopped helping. That was the first time I saw fear touch him. Not fear of losing finals. Fear of being seen without my usefulness covering his fingerprints. He left without another word, but as he reached the door, he turned back once. The cafeteria sunlight hit his face and made him look younger than I remembered, almost boyish, almost harmless. That was how people like Nathan survived. They looked harmless until the knife was already in someone else's story. By 9, the official campus app posted the finals check-in schedule. Team Orion, our team, was assigned to room B at 10:45. In my last life, that notification had arrived while I was sprinting across the courtyard with Mira screaming into my ear. This time, I was in the library scanning my receipt, the rule sheet, and screenshots of every message into a private folder titled Wardrobe. I also sent the documents to my own email, then to a second account I had created the night I woke up reborn, because trauma makes you paranoid and survival makes paranoia practical. The library smelled like paper dust and lemon cleaner. First years whispered over laptops. A professor in a brown coat slept openly in the law section. Normal life continued with almost offensive indifference, and I realized that was another thing my first life had stolen from me, the belief that my disasters mattered to the world. They had mattered to me, yes, and to my mother when she cried over tuition bills, and to the younger brother who stopped mentioning college because my scandal swallowed the family budget. But to everyone else, I had been content.
Avvira il cautionary tale.
A comment section debate. A girl in a clip looking stunned while Mira sobbed into Nathan's shoulder. I opened the old team drive. My access still worked because none of them imagined I would use anything without permission. Inside the folder marked final_version, my script sat under Myra's name. My research deck had been renamed Captain Draft. My annotated sources had been stripped of comments. The prop schedule, the lighting cues, the stage transitions, even the emergency contingency plan were all mine, wearing other people's labels. In the first timeline, I discovered that only after the bar notice, when I tried to prove I mattered to the team and found myself erased from every document. This time, I took screenshots quietly. Not because I planned to expose plagiarism today. One fire at a time. Revenge, if you want it to last, must be organized like a filing cabinet, not thrown like a match. At 9:12, Mira finally sent a voice message. I almost deleted it, then decided evidence could have a voice. I played it at low volume through one earbud. Her sobs arrived first, delicate and controlled. Lena, I don't know what Nathan told you, but whatever you think is happening, you're misunderstanding. We're your friends. We need you. Please don't ruin everything because you're upset about your role. Bring the uniform back, or at least tell wardrobe you authorized Sarah to pick it up.
Please.
I'm begging you. Then, after 3 seconds of silence, her tone changed, flattened, sharpened. She must have thought she had stopped recording. If she doesn't cooperate, tell Professor Vale she's unstable again. The message ended there. Again. One word, and the room tilted. Not because I was surprised, because the past had suddenly acquired another door. In my first life, Professor Vale, our faculty mentor, had treated me with strange caution weeks before finals. He asked whether I was managing stress, whether I had conflicts with Mira, whether I understood that team competitions required emotional maturity. I thought he was referring to one night when I snapped after Felix deleted my citations as a joke. Now I understood. Mira had seeded the ground before burying me. She had used again because this was not the first conversation. Maybe she had been calling me unstable long before I gave her a reason. Maybe my role in their plan had never been teammate, only Puritan culprit. I saved the voice message. I saved it 3 times. Then I stood and walked toward Professor Vale's office, because sometimes the best way to interrupt a trap is to arrive before the trapper. The arts faculty building was colder than the library, full of polished concrete and framed photos of past champions. Team Orion's photo from last year hung near the stairs. Mira in the center. Nathan beside her. Me in the back left, half hidden by Felix's shoulder, holding the award certificate I had drafted the application for but never got to keep. I paused in front of it for exactly 1 breath, then kept walking. Professor Vale's door was open. He sat behind a desk buried in folders, silver hair loose from its tie, glasses low on his nose. He looked up, and the caution was already there.
Of course it was.
Mira had reached him before me in this timeline too. Lena, he said carefully, I was just about to call you. About Team Orion? Yes. He gestured to the chair. Mira is concerned. She says there's been an issue with your uniform and you may be refusing to support the team. In my last life, that sentence would have made me panic and explain too quickly. This time, I sat down slowly, placed my binder on his desk, and opened to the receipt. I returned my assigned uniform to the wardrobe office at 6:19 this morning. It was accepted, scanned, and logged. I did that because my teammates asked me to transfer it unofficially, and I was worried about violating Rule 9. Professor Vale's mouth tightened. Transfer it to whom? I looked him in the eye.
Sarah.
He said nothing. Can you check whether Sarah is eligible for stage participation? I asked. Because if she is, there should be no reason for her to need my registered pieces. That was the second silence of the morning where a man learned the room was not arranged the way he thought. Vale leaned back, fingers steepled. That is a serious implication. Everyone keeps saying that. I removed my phone and played Myra's voice message. The sobs filled the office, then the plea, then the accidental blade. If she doesn't cooperate, tell Professor Vale she's unstable again. When it ended, Vale did not move for a long time. Then he removed his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. Send me that file, he said. People imagine vindication arrives like thunder. Mine arrived as an email attachment. I sent Professor Vale the voice message, screenshots, wardrobe receipt, and group chat excerpts, then watched him forward them to the finals compliance officer with a face that revealed nothing except exhaustion. He did not apologize. Not yet. Adults in institutions rarely apologize at the moment they realize a student may have been telling the truth. First, they audit the risk. He asked me to wait in the office while he made calls. Through the half-open door, I heard pieces of his conversation. Registered uniform returned. Possible unauthorized transfer. Student eligibility. Do not allow alternate check-in without committee clearance. Each phrase landed like a nail sealing a coffin I had once been inside. My phone shook constantly on my lap. Mira called 7 times. Sarah sent a paragraph so long it arrived in pieces, accusing me of cruelty, jealousy, class resentment, and emotional blackmail. Felix wrote, "Bro, this is insane. Just bring the clothes." Armin wrote nothing, which made sense. In the last life, he had said nothing while they destroyed me and later sent one private apology that began, "I wish things had been different," as if events were weather. Nathan sent one message, "You don't know what you're doing." I answered him for the first time.
Ido.
It was not poetic, but it was true, and truth has its own rhythm when you have spent years swallowing it. At 9:58, Professor Vale returned. "Sarah's eligibility is under review," he said. "She missed the minimum rehearsal attendance after the second audit." Mira appealed, but the appeal was denied last week. Last week. My fingers curled around the edge of my skirt. They had known. They had known for 7 days and built a plan around my ignorance. Why wasn't the team informed? I asked. He looked away. The captain was informed. Of course she was. Captains received information. Scholarship girls received consequences. And if Sarah appears on stage, the team can be barred. He said it like a warning, but to me it sounded like memory knocking. "Again," I whispered. Vale looked up. "What?" I shook my head. "Nothing." He studied me for a moment. "Lena, are you withdrawing from the team?" That question should have been simple. Yes would save me. No would keep me near the explosion. In my first life, I thought survival meant staying and proving my innocence from inside the fire. This time, I understood distance was evidence too. "I'm not withdrawing from the competition," I said. "I'm withdrawing from any unauthorized uniform exchange. If the committee provides me a valid replacement and confirms my own identity, I will perform my register role. If the team refuses compliance, I want my objection recorded." Professor Vale's eyebrows lifted slightly. Not admiration. Reassessment. I had seen that look in my second life only from hospital staff, when I correctly predicted which vein would collapse before the nurse touched it. People respect pain when it becomes useful data. "I'll record it," he said. At 10:30, the check-in hallway outside room B looked exactly like a pretty version of a battlefield. Teams lined the walls in matching uniforms, emerald jackets, silver sashes, white gloves, gold-trimmed capes, each group pretending not to inspect the others. Parents hovered near the ropes with cameras. Faculty mentors whispered into phones. Volunteers carried clipboards with the solemn panic of people entrusted with laminated paper. At the far end, under the banner reading National Academic Performance Finals, Team Orion stood in a broken cluster. Even from 20 meters away, I could see the missing shape where certainty used to be. Mira wore her navy blazer perfectly, but her scarf was tied too tight. Sarah stood behind her in a long coat despite the indoor heat. Nathan saw me first. His expression hardened, then smoothed into concern as other teams glanced over. I approached slowly, Professor Vale walking beside me, and felt the old timeline press against my skin. Here, last time, I had arrived sweating, carrying the wrong garment bag, apologizing before anyone accused me. Mira had hugged me with one arm while taking my uniform with the other. Sarah had disappeared into the restroom. Nathan had told me, "You saved us," with such warmth that I held the words close for months after he helped burn me. Now I arrived empty-handed except for my binder. Empty hands are powerful when everyone expects you to carry their guilt. "Lena," Mira said, stepping forward. Her eyes were wet, but no tear fell. She was too disciplined to waste moisture before an audience formed. "Thank God. Please tell them there's been a misunderstanding." I looked at her coat, then at Sarah's pale face behind her. "What misunderstanding?" Myra's smile trembled. "About the uniform. Sarah said it was damaged and you offered." "No," I said. The word was quiet. It still cut the hallway in half. A few students turned. Myra's eyes flashed, then softened again. You're upset. I understand. But we can talk after finals. Right now, please, just tell compliance you authorized the transfer. Professor Vale spoke before I could. There will be no transfer. Lena's assigned uniform is in wardrobe custody. Sarah made a small sound. It might have been a breath, might have been the first pebble of an avalanche. Mira kept looking at me, not at Vale. Why are you doing this? She whispered, perfectly pitched for bystanders. After everything we did for you? That almost got me. Not emotionally, but comedically. Everything they did for me. The stolen drafts, the fake concern, the pre-written accusations. My life had been a house they emptied, and now they wanted rent. I stepped closer and lowered my voice enough that only they could hear. Because last time I brought it. Myra's face went blank. Just for a second. Just long enough to prove that somewhere beneath the performance, instinct understood danger before reason did. What did you say? She asked. I smiled. I said this time. I brought my receipt. The compliance officer arrived at 10:44, a woman named Ms. Rook with clipped hair, black flats, and the soul of a locked filing cabinet. I remembered her from my first life as the person who said, "Rules are not personal," while stamping my future into pieces. Back then I hated her. Later, I realized she had only seen what they arranged for her to see. Today, I plan to improve her view. She called Team Orion forward. Each member presented their ID, scan badge, and uniform tag. Mira passed. Nathan passed. Felix passed with a joke that died halfway through. Armin passed. I passed after wardrobe delivered my replacement set, a committee-issued spare with a temporary code linked directly to my ID. The scanner chirped. Ms. Rook compared my receipt, replacement authorization, and badge, then nodded. Sarah remained at the back in her coat. Student Sarah Kim, Ms. Rook said, please present your uniform tag. Sarah's eyes darted to Mira. Mira placed a hand on her shoulder, the gesture sisterly enough for cameras, controlling enough for anyone who had survived her. Sarah had a wardrobe emergency, Mira said. We submitted an appeal. Your appeal was denied. Ms. Rook did not blink. Sarah Kim is not cleared for stage participation. Murmurs moved through the hallway.
Serait lips parted.
But I rehearsed the whole piece. Attendance audit says otherwise. My mother sent medical documentation. The review panel found the dates insufficient. Mira stepped forward. Ms. Rook, removing her now destroys our formation. We can adapt, but we need 5 minutes to speak privately. In my last life, that request had been granted, and in those 5 minutes, they arranged the lie that swallowed me. This time, Ms. Rook checked her tablet. You have 2 minutes to confirm compliant lineup or forfeit. Myra's face tightened. Nathan leaned in, whispering something I could not hear. Felix swore under his breath. Armin stared at the floor. Sarah clutched the front of her coat with both hands. And then came the pattern interruption none of them expected. A freshman volunteer walked up carrying a clear garment sleeve. Ms. Rook, she said. Wardrobe sent this for Sarah Kim. They said it's her original set, but the tag is inactive. The sleeve was unzipped just enough for everyone to see navy fabric stained with long brown streaks. A coffee, maybe.
Or die.
In my first life, they told me Sarah's uniform had been damaged in laundry. I had never seen it. Now the ruined set hung in public like a confession that had been waiting for better lighting. Ms. Rook looked at the tag, scanned it, and her tablet flashed red. This item was reported damaged yesterday at 1942, she said. By Captain Mira Cho. Myra's hand froze on Sarah's shoulder. Yes, she said. I reported it immediately. You also requested reassignment of Lena Park's registered set to Sarah Kim. The hallway went quieter than a hallway full of teenagers should be able to go. Mira smiled with effort. Only as an emergency measure. Lena agreed verbally. I held out my binder. No, I did not. Ms. Rook took the binder. She did not gasp. She did not praise me. She simply read, which was better than any drama. She read the receipt, the screenshots, the rule highlights, and Professor Vale's forwarded note. Then she asked me one question. At any point did you authorize your assigned uniform to be worn by another student? No, At any point did you agree to present yourself in a non-registered uniform while another student used your assigned set? No. At any point did you damage or handle Sarah Kim's uniform? No, Mira laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. This is absurd. She's obviously prepared all of this because she wanted to trap us. Trap you into what? I asked. She turned on me then, mask slipping at the edges. Into looking guilty. The words bounced off the walls and returned to her changed. Looking guilty. Not being innocent. Nathan stepped in quickly. Everyone's emotional. We just need to perform with 5. Sarah can step out. Sarah stared at him as if he had slapped her. In the old timeline, he had been the bridge between Mira and everyone else, translating cruelty into reason. Now, he was already cutting weight from the sinking boat. No, Sarah said. Her voice shook, but anger gave it bones. You said Lena would fix it. Nathan's eyes flashed warning.
Sera.
You said she always does what you ask. There was tiny and ugly and real. The hallway absorbed it. Felix muttered, "Shut up." Sarah whirled on him. "Don't tell me to shut up. You were laughing when Mira stained my uniform." A sound moved through the nearby teams, not quite a gasp, not quite delight, but the unmistakable rustle of scandal becoming public property. Myra's face strained. "Sarah, you're confused." "No, I'm not. You said if my original uniform was damaged, wardrobe would have to approve a substitute, and Lena's fit closest, and she would never say no if Nathan asked." Sarah was crying now, but unlike Myra's tears, hers were messy, frightened, uncontrolled. "You said after finals we'd explain it was a mix-up." Ms. Rook lifted one hand, and 2 volunteers moved closer. Team Orion's check-in is paused pending compliance review. That sentence had ruined me in another life. Hearing it pointed elsewhere did not feel like joy. It felt like the universe exhaling. Mira looked at me then with pure hatred, all polish burned away. "You did this." I shook my head.
No.
I returned to uniform. She stepped closer, voice low. "You think that makes you clean?" "No," I said. "It makes me early." The compliance review moved us into a side room with frosted glass walls, which meant everyone in the hallway could see silhouettes but not faces. It was institutional mercy. Privacy shaped like a display case. Ms. Rook sat at the head of the table, Professor Vale beside her, and the 6 of us arranged ourselves like suspects in a play too badly written to win awards. Mira kept her spine straight. Nathan looked calm, but his knee bounced under the table. Sarah wiped her face with napkins a volunteer brought. Felix stared at his phone until Ms. Rook told him to put it away. Armin sat beside me, silent as a locked drawer. In my last life, this room had smelled like my own sweat and borrowed polyester. I remembered trying to explain that I had only done what Mira asked, only to realize I had no proof she asked. I remembered Nathan saying, "I never heard Mira approve that," with his eyes full of apology he did not deserve to wear. I remembered Sarah sitting in the corner wearing my cuffs and crying so convincingly that even I wondered if I had misunderstood. Today, Ms. Rook began with the damaged uniform report. "Captain Cho, you reported Sarah Kim's uniform damaged yesterday evening. Why did the report request reassignment of Lena Park's uniform rather than a standard replacement?" Mira inhaled. Her voice came out wounded, not defensive. "Because the standard replacement would alter our stage symmetry. Our performance relies on mirrored silhouettes. Lena told me she didn't mind wearing the spare because her role is mostly narration." My role. Mostly narration. Another theft wrapped in minimization. Ms. Rook turned to me. Response. I opened my binder to the script distribution page. My register role includes narration, movement sequence 3, data reveal, and closing argument. I was not told about Sarah's eligibility issue or uniform damage until this morning, when they asked for my set. Nathan leaned forward. "That's not fair. We didn't want to stress you before finals." I looked at him. "You asked me for my uniform at 6 in the morning and told me Mira was crying. Because we were desperate. Because your plan required me uninformed." He opened his mouth, then closed it. Ms. Rook's pen moved. The sound was tiny, scratching, lethal. Professor Vale asked Sarah, "Did anyone instruct you to wear Lena's assigned uniform?" Sarah looked at Mira, then Nathan, then at the frosted glass where the hallway shapes shifted like ghosts. They said it would be okay. Who said that? Vale asked.
Sera soit l'aude.
Mira said the committee cared about visual continuity, not the specific tag, as long as someone explained afterward. Nathan said Lena would agree, because she was loyal. Felix said if she complained, no one would believe her because she already had issues with stress. Felix snapped, I never said issues. I said she gets intense. I almost laughed again. There are men who can watch a building burn and argue the smoke's adjective. Ms. Rook asked for everyone's phones. That was the second true interruption. Myra's hand tightened around hers. Nathan looked down too fast. Felix cursed. Armin finally raised his head. In student competitions, phone review required consent unless there was a formal disciplinary trigger. Ms. Rook had one now, suspected unauthorized identity transfer. You may decline, she said. Declining will not be held as admission of guilt, but the team will remain suspended pending a full investigation, which means you will not perform today. This was how institutions spoke when giving you a choice shaped like a cage. In my first life, I would have panicked at losing the stage. This time, I watched Mira calculate whether her private messages were worse than immediate suspension. She chose performance or thought she did. One by one, phones slid across the table. I gave mine gladly. Sarah hesitated, then gave hers. Nathan unlocked his with a face like carved wood. Felix muttered that this was fascist, which was his usual word for consequences. Armin handed over his phone, without looking up. Ms. Rook and Vale searched only the Team Orion chat and direct messages related to wardrobe, eligibility, and finals compliance. They found enough in 7 minutes to age the room by years. Mira had written, Sarah must be on stage or the foundation clip is useless. Nathan had written, Lena will fold if I say the team needs her. Felix had posted a laughing sticker after Mira wrote, Worst case, she takes blame. She's used to being invisible. Sarah had written, What if she says no? Mira answered, She won't. Girls like her think loyalty is love. I read that line over Ms. Rook's shoulder by accident, and for the first time that day, something hot moved behind my ribs. Not rage exactly. Recognition. There it was, the thesis of my first life, written by the girl who profited from it. Girls like her think loyalty is love. In another world, that sentence killed me slowly. In this one, it sat glowing on a committee tablet while adults learned my name was not synonymous with disposable. Vale's face had gone gray. Ms. Rook's remained steady, but her mouth tightened at the corners. Captain Cho, she said, your team is barred from today's finals pending disciplinary review. The room made no sound. Then Mira stood so fast her chair struck the wall.
No.
You can't. We've worked for a year. You attempted to place an ineligible student on stage using another student's registered uniform. We didn't do it, because Lena Park prevented it.
Mira pointed at me.
Her fingers shook. Exactly. She prevented us from fixing a problem. She sabotaged the team. Ms. Rook closed the folder. Following the rules is not sabotage. The sentence was so simple, so clean, that I wanted to take it home and frame it above the desk where I used to rewrite Myra's speeches at 2 a.m.
Barred.
Again. The word did not ring like triumph. It landed heavy, familiar, and strangely quiet. Through the frosted glass, I saw the hallway crowd shift as the news traveled without words. Students leaned toward each other. A volunteer covered her mouth. Someone's parent lifted a phone before another adult pushed it down. In my first life, when Team Orion was barred, the door opened and I walked out first because I wanted air, and that was the image everyone captured. Me, pale and stunned, in a mismatched uniform, while Mira collapsed behind me. The clip had been edited with captions about jealousy before I even reached my dorm. Today, Ms. Rook kept us inside until security cleared a path. No statements, she said. No social media posts about other students. Any public accusation may affect the disciplinary process. Mira laughed bitterly. So, she gets to ruin us quietly? No, Ms. Rook said. The evidence will be reviewed formally. Mira turned to Vale. Professor, please. You know me. I watched that arrow leave her bow. You know me. It had saved her many times. Teachers knew her leadership, her donors, her tears, her polished essays, her mother's holiday gift baskets. They knew me too, but as a function, Lena has the notes, Lena can stay late, Lena does not mind, Lena is intense, Lena is lucky to be included. Vale looked at her for a long moment.
I thought I did, he said.
It was not an apology to me, but it wounded her, and that was apparently all he could manage under pressure. Nathan stood next. Can Lena still perform individually? Everyone looked at him. Myra's head snapped around. Betrayal moves fast when self-interest drives. Nathan lifted his hands slightly. She complied. If the committee wants fairness, she shouldn't lose her chance because of decisions she didn't make. I knew that tone. Noble, reasonable, camera ready. He was already building a raft from my innocence. In the first life, he had stood beside Mira because Mira was safer. Now I was safer, so he reached for me. I did not give him the satisfaction of disgust. I gave him accuracy. I'm not your exit strategy, Nathan. His face flushed. That's not what I meant. It's always what you mean. Ms. Rook checked the schedule. There is no individual performance category in today's finals. Lena Park's compliance will be included in the report. Scholarship and internship committees will be notified that she was not responsible for Team Orion's disqualification. That mattered. It mattered more than trophies, more than applause. In my first life, the absence of that sentence had followed me like a curse. Mira heard it too. Her eyes narrowed, because she understood reputation as currency better than anyone. So she walks away clean, she said, after spying on us. I met her gaze.
No, mira.
I walk away documented. The door opened. Security guided us into the hallway. Cameras rose like flowers turning toward sun. The hallway scene became ugly in exactly the way I expected, then ugly in a way I did not. Mira stepped out first despite Ms. Rook's attempt to control order, because even fallen queens prefer to choose the angle of descent. She pressed a hand to her mouth, eyes shining, and for half a second the watching crowd saw what she wanted them to see, a devastated captain betrayed by bureaucracy. Nathan followed, then Sarah, whose face was blotchy from real crying. Felix shoved past a volunteer. Armin stayed beside me. I did not know why until he spoke. I'm sorry, he said quietly. 2 words. Too late in one life, early in another. I looked at him. He kept his eyes forward. I knew they were planning something with the uniform. I didn't know all of it, but I knew enough to ask. I didn't. In my first life, his apology had arrived months after the damage, when it cost him nothing. Today, it cost him something because the story was not settled yet. That did not make him brave. It made him slightly less cowardly than before. Why tell me now? I asked. Because you shouldn't have to stand alone again. Again. The words struck differently from Myra's. I stopped walking. What do you mean again? Armin's face went pale, and for one impossible second, I wondered if rebirth had not returned only me. Then he shook his head. I mean, you always stand alone. His correction came too quickly. A new door appeared in my mind and refused to close. Before I could press him, a shout cut through the hallway. Lena. Myra's mother had arrived. I knew Mrs. Cho from donor events. Diamond watch, cream suits, perfume sharp enough to announce tax brackets. She moved through the students like rules were decorative. Mira turned toward her with visible relief, and the child inside the captain appeared for 1 second, frightened and small. Mrs. Cho did not hug her. She looked at Ms. Rook. What is the meaning of this? Ms. Rook began the formal explanation, but Mrs. Cho sliced through it. My foundation sponsors this event. There it was, the sentence behind 1,000 polite emails. My foundation sponsors this event. Around us, adults stiffened. Students pretended not to listen while listening with their entire bodies. Professor Vale stepped forward. Mrs. Cho, the committee found evidence of attempted unauthorized identity transfer.
Nonsense.
These are children under stress. Her eyes landed on me. And this one has always been difficult, hasn't she? This one. Not Lena. Not student. This one. The old me would have lowered her eyes. The new me looked straight back. Mrs. Cho, your daughter recorded herself instructing people to call me unstable if I did not cooperate. The crowd made a tiny collective sound. Mrs. Cho's mouth curved into something colder than a smile. Be careful, dear. Accusing families without understanding consequences is how scholarship girls lose opportunities. Pattern interruption. My mother spoke before I did. I had not seen my mother enter. She must have come from the parent seating area, still wearing her bakery uniform under a gray coat, flour dust faint on one sleeve. In my first life, I called her only after the scandal broke, sobbing so hard she could barely understand me. She arrived too late to see how they looked at me before the story hardened. This time, because rebirth had made me paranoid, and because love deserves evidence too, I had texted her at 7. Finals issue. Please come early if you can. Don't panic. I'm safe. She came. She stood beside me now, shorter than Mrs. Cho by half a head, with tired eyes and hands rough from work, and said, Are you threatening my daughter? No one expected her voice. It was not loud. It was not refined. It had the flat edge of a woman who had woken at 4 to bake bread for people who looked through her and still found energy to defend her child. Mrs. Cho glanced at her uniform, then dismissed her as background. I'm explaining reality. My mother stepped closer. Reality is that my daughter returned what belonged to the school and refused to lie. Your daughter tried to use her. We understand enough. Heat moved up my throat. In both lives, I had tried to protect my mother from humiliation by hiding pain until it became too large to hide. I had thought love meant sparing her the ugliness. But watching her stand there, small and immovable, I realized I had robbed her too, of the chance to stand with me when standing mattered. Mrs. Cho's eyes narrowed. This matter will be handled by the board. Good, my mother said. Then we'll bring receipts. A laugh burst from somewhere in the crowd before being smothered. Even Ms. Rook looked down, possibly to hide a smile. Mira stared at my mother with disbelief, as if poor women were not supposed to have timing. Nathan looked at me again, something like admiration flickering across his face. I hated it. Admiration from people who once used you feels like a hand reaching into a wound to steal the bullet. My mother touched my elbow. Are you okay? She asked. Such a simple question. No performance, no strategy. I almost broke then. Not because I was weak, but because tenderness after betrayal is more dangerous than rage. I'm okay, I said. She looked at me carefully, not fully believing, but accepting the answer for now. Mrs. Cho was still speaking to committee officials, her voice low and lethal. Mira stood beside her, face rigid. Sarah had disappeared into a corner, crying into her hands. And Team Orion, once the most polished finalist group in the country, stood in a hallway surrounded by the uniforms they had tried to weaponize, barred before stepping on stage. By afternoon, the official announcement went out. Team Orion has been removed from the finals roster due to compliance irregularities. Compliance irregularities. Institutions love phrases that sound like furniture assembly problems. The announcement did not name me, which was mercy and also strategy. But inside the student body, names moved faster than official statements. By lunch, 3 versions existed. I had exposed a cheating scheme. I had refused to help a friend. Mira had been framed by jealous scholarship trash. Sarah had cracked under pressure. Nathan had tried to save everyone. Professor Vale had covered something up. Mrs. Cho had threatened the committee. My mother had threatened Mrs. Cho with receipts, which became increasingly dramatic each time it was retold until by 3 o'clock someone claimed she had slapped a donor with a bakery tray. I did not correct that one immediately. Let mythology have a snack. The finals continued without us. I sat in the back row with my mother, wearing the replacement uniform I no longer needed, watching other teams perform under white stage lights. Their speeches blurred together. Equity, innovation, belonging, resilience. Words I had once worshipped because I thought saying them beautifully could make them true. My mother squeezed my hand when the MC announced the winner, a team from Busan with a brilliant piece about rural hospital deserts. They deserved it. That surprised me. In my last life, after being barred, I could not bear to watch anyone else succeed. Their applause felt stolen from me. This time, I could recognize another person's victory without feeling erased by it. That, more than Myra's downfall, felt like proof I had changed. During intermission, Professor Vale approached us. He bowed slightly to my mother. "Mrs. Park, Lena, I owe you both an apology." My mother looked at me first, letting me decide whether to receive it. In the old world, adults spoke over me even when apologizing for doing exactly that. I nodded once. Vale continued. "Mira raised concerns about Lena's emotional stability several weeks ago. I accepted them too readily because they came from a captain I trusted and because Lena had seemed intense during preparation." He winced at his own word. I failed to distinguish pressure from misconduct.
I'm sorry.
My mother's grip tightened, but she stayed silent. I asked, "Will that be included in the report?" Vale looked pained. My failure. The fact that Mira preconditioned faculty against me. He exhaled. "Yes." "And the document ownership issue?" His eyes flicked to mine. "What document ownership issue?" I opened my binder. Fire one had burned. Time for the next drawer. I showed him the screenshots. My drafts were named, my comments deleted, my research entered under Myra's name. His face shifted from embarrassment to something sharper. "Lena," he said slowly, "how long has this been happening?" I looked toward the stage where students in bright uniforms reset props under golden light. Long enough that everyone thought my silence was part of the process. The disciplinary hearing was scheduled for Monday, which gave Mira exactly 41 hours to rewrite the story. She used every one. By Saturday morning, anonymous posts appeared on the student forum claiming I had always resented Myra's leadership and had intentionally returned my uniform to sabotage a donor-backed team. By Saturday afternoon, an edited clip of my hallway confrontation circulated with the caption, "Scholarship student destroys finals because captain won't give her lead role." The clip began after Mrs. Cho threatened me and ended before my mother spoke. Convenient. In my first life, that kind of post would have sent me into a spiral of explanations. I would have replied too much, too fast, feeding strangers pieces of my pain until they built entertainment from it. This time, I did not post. I archived. I screenshotted usernames, timestamps, edits, reposts, and comments from accounts that had never mentioned our school before. Then I slept for 10 hours. That was another act of rebellion. Panic wants your body as payment. I refused. Sunday morning, Nathan came to my apartment building. Not my dorm, my actual apartment, the narrow walk-up above a stationery shop where my family lived during school terms because campus housing was too expensive after subsidies changed. I saw him through the peephole holding 2 coffees like props. My brother, Min, 12 and allergic to emotional subtlety, whispered, "Is that the handsome snake?" My mother hissed his name from the kitchen. I almost laughed, then opened the door with the chains still latched. Nathan's face rearranged itself into humility. "Can we talk?" "We are." He looked at the chain. "Privately?" "No," his eyes flicked behind me, where Min was absolutely pretending not to listen. "I wanted to apologize. You wanted to see what I'm submitting Monday." A flush touched his ears. "Good. That's not fair. Fairness is having a busy weekend." He sighed, letting exhaustion show. "Mira is blaming everyone. She says Sarah misunderstood, Felix exaggerated. I pressured her. You manipulated evidence. Her mother's lawyers are drafting statements. If we all go down separately, she'll survive and the rest of us won't. So now you believe in collective honesty?" "I believe in not being sacrificed." "That's not honesty. That's fear looking for better clothes." He flinched. In another life, I might have softened. Nathan knew that. He waited for it. When it did not come, he set the coffees down on the floor between us like offerings to a closed shrine. "I have messages," he said, "from Mira. About the uniform, about Sarah, about framing you if it failed. I didn't delete them. There it was, the real reason. Not remorse. Leverage seeking immunity. Send them to the committee," I said. "I will if you tell them I helped you." I stared at him through the gap. "You didn't. I'm helping now." "No." "You're late." His jaw worked. Lena, please. My scholarship. Mine died last time. The words escaped before I could dress them. Nathan went still. Last time? Behind me, the kitchen quieted. I held his gaze and understood that I had made my first true mistake of the day. Not because he would believe in rebirth. People like Nathan do not believe in miracles unless they can monetize them. But he heard something in my voice that sounded older than anger. I closed the door. Through the wood, he said, I'll send the messages. I waited until his footsteps faded before sliding down to the floor. Min appeared beside me with one of the abandoned coffees. Do we drink snake coffee? He asked. My mother said from the kitchen. No, then, after a pause. Maybe the sealed one. We laughed, and the laugh shook something loose that had been lodged in my chest for years. Monday's hearing took place in Conference Room 3, a room designed to make every student feel already guilty. Long table, white walls, water pitchers, flags in the corner, committee members with folders arranged by severity. The accused sat on one side, Mira, Nathan, Felix, Sarah, Armin, and me, though my status had shifted from implicated participant to reporting witness. Mrs. Cho sat behind Mira with a lawyer who smelled like expensive paper. My mother sat behind me in her bakery uniform again because she had come straight from work and refused my request to change. Let them see, she said. I'm not ashamed. Professor Vale sat near the committee, looking as though he had slept badly. Ms. Rook presented the compliance timeline first. She spoke like a scalpel. Sarah ruled ineligible after attendance audit. Mira notified. Sarah's uniform reported damaged by Mira. Mira requested reassignment of my registered set. I returned my set before transfer. Group messages indicated intent to pressure me and assign blame. Check-in halted. Team barred. The lawyer tried to soften every verb. Attempted became explored. Pressure became persuade. Blame became concern. Ms. Rook did not soften with him. Then came phone evidence. Nathan had sent his messages Sunday night, of course, with a long statement positioning himself as a conflicted bystander who had failed to challenge leadership. Cowardice, translated into resume language. Felix submitted almost nothing and looked increasingly ill as his jokes appeared on the screen. Sarah cried through her testimony, admitting she knew she was not cleared but believed Mira had committee connections. Armin admitted he suspected the plan and did not intervene. Mira denied intent until the committee displayed her own sentence. Worst case, she takes blame. She's used to being invisible. The room changed after that. Some sentences are too honest to defend. Myra's lawyer requested context. The chairwoman, Dean Seo, asked Mira to provide it. Mira lifted her chin. We were stressed. It was a private message. I didn't mean Lena was actually invisible. I meant she prefers backstage work, and I was worried she wouldn't understand the importance of Sarah's presence. Dean Seo asked, why was Sarah's presence important if she was ineligible? Mira glanced at her mother. Our performance had been rehearsed with 6. Then, why did you not request an official formation adjustment after the appeal denial? There wasn't time. You had 7 days. Myra's mouth closed. 7 days sat on the table like a stone. My turn came after lunch. I stood, hands steady, because I had rehearsed truth more than they had rehearsed lies. In preparation for finals, I completed research, script editing, prop planning, and document organization. I was not informed that Sarah was ineligible. On finals morning, multiple teammates asked me to bring or authorize use of my uniform. Because I was concerned about Rule 9, I returned it to wardrobe and requested documentation. I believe that prevented an unauthorized identity transfer for which I would have been blamed. Dean Seo asked whether I had any reason to believe blame was intended. I submitted Myra's voice message, Nathan's Sunday messages, and the group chat line about invisibility. Then, because one life had taught me that partial truth leaves hiding places, I submitted the document ownership evidence too. The lawyer objected that plagiarism was outside the scope. Dean Seo looked at the renamed drafts, my original timestamps, and the final competition files. It may be outside the original scope, she said, but it appears relevant to motive and pattern.
Pattern.
Finally, someone else used the right word. Mira broke during the second hour after lunch. But not the way people break in stories where villains confess because conscience blooms late. She broke because her strategies ran out of oxygen. Dean CO asked why my research files had been moved into Myra's folder and renamed, without attribution. Mira said Captain's consolidated materials. Dean CO asked why my comments had been deleted. Mira said formatting. Dean CO asked why the final script listed Mira as primary author when document history showed my account creating 74% of the text. Mira said leadership includes direction. Dean CO asked why leadership required removing my name from the bibliography notes, prop plan, and sponsor application. Myra's lawyer touched her arm, warning her to stop improvising.
Mrs. Cho whispered something.
Mira looked at me then, and her face twisted with an emotion too raw to be performance.
Because she didn't need it, she snapped.
The room froze. Her lawyer closed his eyes. Dean CO leaned forward. Explain. Mira breathed hard. She didn't care about being seen. She always said she just wanted the team to succeed. I was the one who had to speak, meet donors, handle pressure, keep everyone together. She wrote things, yes, but I shaped them. I made them matter. Without me, she was just notes in a folder. There it was, not a denial, a worldview. I remembered all the nights she leaned over my laptop saying, "You're so good at the details, Lena. I could never do what you do." Praise is dangerous from someone who sees your talent as raw material. Dean CO asked, "Did Lena consent to having her work submitted under your name?" Myra's eyes shone. She never complained. I felt my mother move behind me. I did not turn around.
I did not need to.
Her anger had a temperature. Dean CO wrote something down. Silence is not consent. Another sentence I wanted to frame. Mira laughed, but it broke halfway. So, now everyone pretends Lena is innocent? She knew how teams work. She liked being needed. She liked acting humble while making us depend on her. I stood before anyone could stop me. Yes, I said. Everyone looked at me. Mira blinked. Yes, I liked being needed. I liked being told I mattered. I liked believing that when I stayed late, gave you my drafts, covered your mistakes, and answered messages at 3 a.m, it meant I belonged. That was my weakness. But my weakness did not give you ownership of me. Silence. Not the dead silence of shock. The living kind, where something rearranges in people's heads. I sat down. My knees trembled under the table, hidden by the skirt I had almost lost a life over. Dean CO dismissed us while the committee deliberated. In the hallway, Myra's mother gripped her daughter's arm hard enough to whiten her fingers. Nathan approached me, stopped when my mother looked at him, and wisely chose thirst over conversation, walking to the water fountain. Armin stood by the window. Sarah sat on the floor, crying into her sleeves. Felix stared at nothing. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt tired in a way sleep could not fix. Rebirth had given me another chance, but it had not erased the cost of understanding people too well. The verdict came at 5:20. Team Orion's finals disqualification stood. Mira received a 1-year suspension from all committee competitions, removal from the Student Leadership Council, and a formal academic integrity investigation for misattribution of work. Sarah received probation for attempting to participate while ineligible but avoided harsher discipline because she cooperated. Nathan, Felix, and Armin received varying sanctions for complicity, failure to report, and inappropriate communications. Professor Vale received an internal review for mishandling student concerns. My record was cleared before it was ever stained, and the committee issued letters to scholarship boards, internship partners, and the National Finals Office stating that I had complied with regulations and reported suspected misconduct. The letter mattered so much that when Dean CO handed me a copy, I had to grip it with both hands. It was just paper. White, official, stamped. But in another life, I had begged for paper like this and been told there was no basis to revise the finding. Now it existed because I returned a uniform before breakfast. Mira stood very still as the verdict was read. Mrs. Cho's face had gone beyond anger into calculation. Nathan looked relieved by the fact that he still had a scholarship, which told me exactly how temporary his remorse was. Sarah cried again. Felix cursed and was removed from the room. Armin accepted his sanction quietly. When the meeting ended, Mira finally approached me without her mother. The hallway outside conference room 3 was empty except for a janitor changing trash bags and late sunlight striping the floor. Mira looked smaller without an audience, but not softer. "Are you happy?" she asked. The question was so ordinary that for a moment I saw all the girls we might have been if envy had not found us first. Classmates, collaborators, maybe even friends. Then I remembered the hospital monitor. "No," I said. "I'm free." She flinched, which satisfied me more than yes would have. "You think they care about you now?" she whispered. "They care because I have evidence. Don't confuse that with justice." "Then why do all this?" "Because evidence is enough to start." Her eyes filled, and this time I believed the tears were real. Real did not mean innocent. "My mother is going to destroy me," she said. There it was, the hidden engine. Not an excuse, but an origin. Mrs. Cho had built a daughter who saw people as instruments because she had raised her inside a house where love arrived through performance metrics. In my first life, I might have mistaken understanding for forgiveness. Not anymore. "Then don't become her," I said. Mira laughed softly. "Easy for you to say. Your mother came to defend you." "Yes," I said, because I finally let her know I needed defending. Mira looked away. For 1 second, her face cracked open and showed something young, bitter, and terrified. Then she sealed it. "This isn't over." "I know. You'll always be the girl who ruined finals." I folded the committee letter and placed it in my binder. "Maybe. But this time, the footnotes are mine." I walked away before she could answer. The weeks after finals were not peaceful. People lie when they say truth fixes everything at once. Truth is not a magic spell. It is a crowbar. It opens what was sealed, and then you still have to climb through the wreckage. The student forum devoured the scandal. Some posts defended me. Others called me calculating. One anonymous account wrote, "Lena Park kept receipts like she planned to betray them, as if documenting pressure were a moral failure." Another wrote, "Mira was wrong, but Lena gives scary vibes." That one almost made me laugh. Girls are always scary when they stop being convenient. The school administration issued a careful statement about compliance and student welfare. Mrs. Cho's foundation paused its sponsorship, then unpaused it 2 days later after public criticism suggested punishing the event would look vindictive. Professor Vale sent a formal apology email and removed himself from mentoring student teams. Dean Seo offered me an independent research assistantship for the summer, which I accepted after reading the contract twice and asking for my role to be defined in writing. My mother framed the committee clearance letter despite my protest and hung it above the kitchen table, between a calendar and a photo of Min wearing a crooked graduation cap from primary school. "It looks dramatic," I told her. She said, "Good." Min started calling it the Uniform Freedom Certificate. Life continued in strange fragments. I still woke some nights expecting rejection emails from a future that had not happened yet. I still flinched when classmates whispered near lockers. I still checked my phone too often, afraid some edited clip would outrun the evidence. But something inside me had shifted from pleading to observing. When people approached me, I listened for verbs. Did they ask, offer, assume, assign, borrow, demand? Language reveals ownership before actions do. Nathan tried twice to apologize properly. The first time, he wrote a long message about pressure and ambition. I replied, "This explains you. It does not repair anything." The second time, he left a handwritten note in my locker, which I returned unopened because boundaries do not need literary analysis. Sarah transferred teams the next semester and sent me one email that said, "I'm sorry I agreed to wear your life because I was scared for mine." That sentence was ugly and honest enough that I believed it. I did not reply immediately. 3 days later, I wrote, "Don't do it to anyone else." Armin became the only former teammate I spoke to sometimes, mostly because he did not ask for absolution. He sent me committee updates when public notices changed, and once left a USB drive at my desk containing archived Team Orion files with my original metadata restored. Attached note. "You built more than they admitted." I kept the drive. I kept the note too. Not because forgiveness had arrived, but because records matter. The strangest consequence arrived in spring, when the National Finals Office invited me to present a solo research talk at the Student Ethics Forum. Not a performance. Not a competition.
A talk.
Topic: authorship, access, and invisible labor in student teams. I almost declined because the title sounded like a punishment disguised as an opportunity, but Dean Seo encouraged me, and my mother said, "Use your own voice somewhere they can't put Myra's name on it." So I wrote the talk myself, credited everyone who helped, and wore my own clothes.
No uniform.
The morning of the forum, I stood backstage in a black dress and low heels, staring at the curtain while my palms sweated. Rebirth did not cure fear. It simply made fear less persuasive. On the other side of the curtain sat students, teachers, sponsors, committee officers, and, unbelievably, Mira. She was seated near the back with Mrs. Cho, both dressed like they had come to inspect a building they might buy. I did not know she would be there. For 1 second, the old body memory returned. Check-in hallway, borrowed polyester, cameras rising. I almost forgot how to breathe. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Min. "Don't let the snakes steal your microphone." I laughed so. Abruptly, the stage manager asked if I was okay. "Yes," I said. "I am."
My talk began with the uniform.
Not the scandal, not the names, just the object. "A uniform is supposed to make a team look united," I said, voice echoing through the auditorium. But sometimes a uniform hides the fact that only one person is being asked to disappear. I told them about invisible labor. The student who edits everyone's work, the quiet teammate who tracks deadlines, the scholarship kid who cannot risk being called difficult, the friend who says yes until yes becomes expected, and expected becomes ownership. I did not name Mira. I did not need to. The story had already done enough naming. Halfway through, I changed the slide to a blank page with one sentence. "Silence is not consent." Dean Seo's sentence. I credited her. Then another. "Following the rules is not sabotage." Ms. Rook's sentence. I credited her too. Then my own. "Loyalty without boundaries is just a door left open for theft." The audience was very quiet. I looked toward the back once. Mira was watching me with an expression I could not read. Mrs. Cho was looking at her phone.
Of course she was.
Some people can sit through the autopsy of their influence and still check messages. At the end, I did not cry. I did not tremble. I finished with this. I used to think being chosen by a team meant I belonged. Now I think belonging starts when I can say no and still remain whole. The applause rose slowly, then fully. It did not fix the old life. It did not resurrect the girl who died believing everyone else's version of her. But it reached something in me that had been sitting in a hospital room, laughing at irony, waiting for someone to turn around and say, "You were there. You mattered. You were not crazy." I bowed, and for the first time in either life, the work had my name on it. After the forum, I found Mira in the side corridor near the vending machines. Not dramatically waiting in shadow, not crying under a poster, just standing there with a bottle of water she had not opened. Her hair was shorter now, cut to her shoulders, less princess, more person. I considered walking past. Then she said, "Your talk was good." I stopped. Compliments from Mira were historically invoices, but this one sounded tired enough to be free. "Thank you." She twisted the bottle cap, but did not break the seal. My mother hated it. I assumed. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. She said invisible labor is what untalented people call assistance. That sounds like her. I moved out. That surprised me. Not because rich girls cannot move out, but because Mira had always seemed attached to her mother's power, even while suffocating under it. Where? A dorm across town. Terrible water pressure. No private bathroom. I thought I would die the first week. Did you?
Unfortunately, no.
The joke landed awkwardly, but it was a joke. We stood in silence while someone down the hall tested a microphone, sending a dull thump through the walls. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," Mira said.
Good.
She nodded once, accepting the blade. I don't think I understood what I did until the committee made me read the messages out loud in the follow-up review. Not because I didn't know they were cruel. I knew, but hearing them in my own voice, with everyone quiet, made them sound. She searched for the word. Inherited. I said nothing. She looked at me. That's not an excuse. I know. I started therapy. The word floated between us, strange and fragile. In my old life, Mira had become a mental health donor darling after helping destroy mine. The universe had a cruel sense of symmetry. I'm glad, I said, and meant it carefully. She laughed under her breath. You still sound like you're documenting. I am. Fair. She finally opened the water. There's something else. The night before finals, when I stained Sarah's uniform, Nathan told me you might refuse. He said you had been acting different that week. I asked different how, and he said she hesitated. He said you looked at us like you'd already survived us. Cold moved over my skin. Did he? Yes.
She studied me.
Had you? The vending machine hummed. Somewhere beyond the corridor, applause began for the next speaker. I thought of telling her the truth. Not because she deserved it, but because part of me wanted one witness from the old crime scene. Then I imagined Mira holding my impossible confession, turning it over, finding the sharpest edge, deciding whether to cut me or herself.
Some truths are not gifts.
They are loaded weapons. I survived enough, I said. She nodded slowly, disappointed or relieved. Maybe both.
I'm sorry, Lina.
There it was. Not enough, not late enough, not early enough, just there. I let the silence stretch until it became clear I would not rush to comfort her. I hope one day, I said, you become someone who would have protected the girl you used. Her eyes filled, but she blinked the tears back. Me too. Then she walked away and I let her. Forgiveness did not descend from the ceiling. Violins did not play. I did not feel lighter. I felt like I had placed a stone down carefully instead of throwing it through a window, and sometimes that is the only kind of peace available. Graduation arrived 2 years later under a sky so blue it looked edited. By then, Team Orion had become one of those campus stories older students told younger ones with increasing inaccuracies. In one version, Mira tried to sneak an actress into finals. In another, I hacked the wardrobe system. In Min's preferred version, my mother defeated a billionaire with a receipt and a baguette. The truth was less cinematic and more useful. I returned what was mine before anyone could misuse it, kept records, told the truth early, and refused to confuse panic with obligation. Mira graduated from a different program after repeating a semester. She sent no message. Nathan lost his leadership scholarship, but kept studying. The last I heard, he had joined a consulting club where I hoped someone watched the shared folders. Sarah became a student advisor for attendance compliance, which felt either ironic or appropriate. Armin and I remained distant allies, the kind who nod across rooms and occasionally exchange files with clean labels. Professor Vale retired from competition mentoring and wrote me a recommendation, so specific it almost hurt. Lena Park demonstrates rigorous authorship ethics, exceptional research discipline, and unusual courage under institutional pressure. My mother cried when she read it. I pretended not to. On graduation morning, I wore the black gown over a cream dress and carried no uniform, no borrowed roll, no emergency garment bag. The ceremony hall smelled like flowers and overheated lights. Families waved from balconies. Students adjusted caps, hugged, compared honor cords. I found my seat and saw a small envelope taped underneath. For one wild second, I thought of Mira, but the handwriting was Dean Seo's. Inside was a copy of the policy amendment passed that year. Team competitions now required individual authorship logs, direct committee notification for eligibility changes, and student consent forms for any role or costume reassignment. At the bottom, Dean Seo had written, "Systems should not require one student's pain to improve. Thank you for making us improve anyway." I sat there holding the paper while the hall blurred. In my first life, the institution had turned me into a warning. In this one, I had forced it to become a record. When my name was called, I walked across the stage. The applause was not thunderous. I was not famous, not a queen, not a viral heroine with perfect justice at her feet. I was a girl who had once died from being misnamed and had returned stubborn enough to label every folder. I shook the dean's hand. My mother shouted my name so loudly Min pretended to be embarrassed while filming. The photographer captured me mid-laugh, mouth open, eyes bright, gown sleeves slipping. Not polished. Not invisible.
Mine.
That night, after dinner, I walked back to campus alone. The finals hall was closed, but the wardrobe office light was still on. Mrs. Hahn was inside sorting garment bags, older now only because I knew how much time had passed. I knocked. She looked up, recognized me after a second, and smiled. "Uniform girl," she said. "Graduation girl," I corrected. She laughed and unlocked the side window so we could talk without opening the office. The same scanner sat on the desk. The same printer. The same rows of navy, emerald, silver, and white uniforms hung behind her like sleeping versions of other people's ambitions. "I heard the policy changed because of your case," she said. "Partly."
Good.
"Students treat these uniforms like costumes, but they're records. People forget records can protect them."
I didn't, I said.
She studied me kindly. "No, I suppose you didn't." I thanked her then, properly, for scanning the set that morning, for printing the receipt, for not dismissing my strange request. She waved me off, embarrassed. I did my job. That mattered. Her expression softened. "Then you're welcome." After she closed the window, I stood outside a while, watching moths circle the office light. In another life, I had thought the universe owed me a spectacular revenge. Mira ruined publicly, Nathan begging, everyone who doubted me forced to kneel. Some of that happened, or something close enough for gossip. But the longer I lived this second life, the less interested I became in kneeling. What I wanted was continuity. A life where my name stayed attached to my work. A future where my mother did not have to learn my pain from strangers. A body that did not collapse under the pressure of everyone else's story. The campus bell rang 9 times. My phone buzzed with a message from Min. "Are you coming or dramatically staring at buildings again?" I typed, "Dramatically staring. 5 minutes." He sent a snake emoji, a microphone emoji, and a bread emoji. I laughed into the dark. Then I looked once more at the wardrobe office, at the place where revenge had begun not with fire but with a return form, and I finally understood the shape of my rebirth. I had not come back to destroy them, though they mistook every boundary for an attack. I had come back to return what was never theirs. The uniform, the labor, the blame, the story, the girl. I returned each piece quietly, properly, with timestamps where necessary. And when finals came, they were barred again. This time, I was not standing beside them in the wrong clothes. I was standing outside the trap, holding my receipt, watching the doors close exactly where they should.